for my first pick and the first overall of the Super Bowl 56 Sunday six-pack, I am going with Samaje Perine under 14.5 rushing plus receiving yards. And the reason I like this number is because you look at Perine, and this is all recency bias. He scored the Bengals' first touchdown in the AFC Championship game, and it was a 40-plus yard play that he broke on a screen. And now we're getting this 14.5 number. It was 15.5 when it initially came out, so it's come down a yard. But previous 5 games, Perine had got under this. And the previous 2 postseason games, he gotten a single touch. Now, he averages about under 4 yards a carry for his career, averages around 7 yards a catch. So no matter how you slice it at this number, he's likely going to need 3 touches, or, that's what he would need to clear this number. And 2 of them probably needing to be catches. His receptions prop is 1.5 with it juiced to the under. So that tells you, first of all, that, the most likely outcome is he'll get a catch. He's only got 1 carry in 3 postseason games, which is 1 less than the number 3 back, Chris Evans. So there's just a lot of things kind of pointing to Perine not being able to clear this, even though he did it last game, is kind of that being an anomaly. But on top of that, if you watch that Kansas City game, and this is important with props like this, it seemed like they used up all their Perine plays. Like, he had 1 play with the screen where he got the touchdown. He had another play in that game. I don't know if you remember, Stuck, but I think Romo called it out where he ran the wrong way on a play that could have actually potentially gone for a touchdown on like a third. I think it was a 3rd down. So and again, this is a guy who
line went one way and he went the other on a screen.
And let me remind you, this is a player, the backup running back to one of their best players in Joe Mixon, who in the previous 5 games had been under this. So, yeah, I think they pulled out some things with Perine to kind of keep Kansas City off guard in that AFC Championship game. But I just don't think they have another package to get this guy like this many good looks in the Super Bowl. I think, and it's the Super Bowl. So Joe Mixon's been a workhorse all year. Wouldn't be surprised if he almost never comes out in the Super Bowl. I mean, you got 2 weeks rest. You're leaving it all on the table. The first game in the playoffs after everyone for the Bengals essentially rested in week 17, Perine got 1 touch. So many things to me just point to this under. I mean, I don't mind the, if you can get, I saw 5.5 rushing yards out there. I saw 9.5 receiving yards, which is kind of the breakdown. I don't even mind the unders on that, but I think the best way to kind of look at it is you're essentially betting under 3 touches here. And even if he gets 3, he's no guarantee to get to 15 yards. So love Samaje Perine under 14.5 rushing plus receiver.
Yeah, I like this as well. I played it. And one of the reasons, I think that there's 2 reasons why this has value. One, recency bias, as you mentioned, there was, the 41-yard touchdown on the screen, and also his season-long numbers would illustrate that this is a good bet to make on the over. But you have to remember there was about a month stretch where he was splitting carries like 50-50 because Mixon had a hurt ankle. And if you remove those games over the course of a month, and then you just isolate the other 17 games, including the postseason, he averaged right around 15 yards total reception and rushing yards. But Mixon still, was getting more bruised than usual. And as you said, over the past five games, he's averaged 13.8 total yards, and almost all of that came on 1 screen pass. He's gone way under this number in 4 or 5 games. If you remove that 1 fluky screen, and he almost got tackled, he's averaged 4.4 yards per play over this past 5 games. And as you said, I agree. I think Mixon is going to get almost every carry, and most of the looks in the reception game probably won't come out. It's a Super Bowl. They don't have to worry about his ankle or injury or next week. It's all out here. And I actually like this better than the rushing and receiving because I think he'll probably get like 1 or 2 touches. I don't know which he's going to get. And then this allows for him to all right, if he gets 1 touch and he breaks it 12 yards on one of the 2 touches that he gets, this gives you a little more leeway.
Yeah. Exactly.
If you really strongly about, okay, he's definitely not getting a carry, he's going to get a reception, then you might want to go under carries. But I agree. Basically, I think you're just taking your chances here with the fact that Perine's not going to break like a screen again, which you could do.
Essentially betting on I would say probably 5%, 4 to 5% chance that Mixon gets hurt in game. Listen, like that's a better way to look at it. Like if Mixon gets hurt, the profit's toast. But if he doesn't, there's a really good chance that Samaje Perine's not breaking like a 40 or any big screen plays for the rest of the playoffs.
Yep. All right. Well, my first prop is actually related, so I'll move on to that. For my best bet and the second overall of the Super Bowl Sunday 6-pack, I'm going with Joe Mixon over 25.5 reception yards. So I already built my case saying that I think Mixon is going to get most of the workload here, if not almost every single snap and all the looks in the passing game. And but I like this for many other reasons. And I think that, if you look at his season-long numbers, you would say, maybe this number isn't great. He averaged, I think, during the regular season about 19.6 reception yards on 2.6 catches on 3 targets per game. So you say, all right, well, that's 20 yards. But it's been a different offense. And as we mentioned, he was hurt. He was splitting carries. But the Bengals have been much more pass first on early downs, and some of that mess in the Kansas City game. Since about week 13, 14, top 5 in the NFL. They're also using Mixon a lot more in the passing game as an extension of the running game. And, let's look at the past 5 games. As we just mentioned, one of the reasons why we like Perine under. Past 5 games, Mixon has averaged 43.2 reception yards, and he's cleared that 25.5 reception yard mark in all 5 games, including all 3 playoff games. And, let's look at the matchup too. So he's going to have a lot of snaps. He's getting a lot more looks. The Rams play a lot of zone, and they should be able to get pressure here. Whether they blitz or not, it's going to be one of the keys to the game here. Are they going to blitz? How much are they going to blitz? Because Burrow shreds blitz. The Rams like to blitz a decent amount, but they should be able to get pressure regardless. They're going to play a lot of zone. What does that mean? A lot of check downs, dump downs. And the Rams actually struggled to cover backs this year. They were 24th DVOA defending running backs in the passing game. So, one other factor, Bengals are underdogs. So the most likely game state is that the Bengals are playing from behind. And I actually think that that's how this game plays out. And that's how I kind of build a lot of my prop portfolio, is I think that the Rams actually come out and take a lead. And then it's going to be up to the Rams to hold the Bengals back. We'll give our predictions at the end, and hold the Bengals from coming back again, as Joe Burrow has done so frequently. So I think that there's good matchup here. You're going to get a lot of snaps, and you might get a favorable game state as well. So there's a lot of things to like about Mixon. So you could get this on one. I think there's going to be a lot of. Not only do I think you're going to have Burrow checkdowns, but if with this aggressive pass rush, if they're trying to tee off on Burrow, design screens to Mixon to try and slow down, Donald, Miller and company. So, I like Mixon over 25.5 reception yards. I'm the prop square on this podcast. I think I've gotten like almost everyone wrong. What did I had one. No, I don't think I've gotten one right yet. In our 76.
Jimmy G killed you on a 4-yard run.
On a 4-yard run at the end of the first half.
I saw that, and I was like, there goes that.
Almost had Boyd. Boyd comes out in the first quarter cooking, and then they just never throw him again. But, yeah, so, of course, I'm going with an over to start, but I really like this one. I think it should be like, I don't know, closer to like 30.
Yeah, I think
29-ish.
So, what's interesting is something you didn't even mention is, the health of CJ Uzomah, right? Because that's kind of a big deal. I mean, we've seen Uzomah be that security blanket, and, when, and the Bengals don't leave a guy in the block often. They usually do send 5 in the route. But when they are leaving a guy in the block, which will happen throughout the course of the game, especially against a team like the Rams with, that can rush off the edge, it comes down to either Mixon or the tight end. And so if the tight end's banged up, I think he'd be more likely to do that. Or if it's Drew Sample in there, either way, I think you're getting Mixon out into the routes. You're prioritizing that because he's just a more explosive player. at this point than any of your tight ends. So yeah, it makes sense from a lot of different angles. All right, for my second pick and the third overall of the Super Bowl 56 Sunday six pack, I'm going with Matthew Stafford under 5.5 rushing yards. And this is another one of my favorite props because I think it kind of lets you take advantage of recency bias, and you need a little bit of cojones to bet it looking at the game logs, because the last 3 games Stafford has been over this number, which means all 3 postseason games he's been over this number. But we know that quarterback rushing yards, especially with a number this low, there's going to be a lot of variance that it could change based on 1 or 2 plays. So you look back over the whole season, Stafford has been under this number in 13 of 20 games. So 13 of 17 regular season games before he went over in the 3 playoff games. But his median is a half a rushing yard this year. Now, you look at Cincinnati and you say, is there any reason why you would expect Cincinnati to give up more rushing yards to Stafford than his normal median? And the answer is there isn't. Cincinnati's a zone-heavy team. They allowed the 10th fewest rushing yards to quarterbacks during the regular season. And by the way, 10th fewest rushing yards to quarterbacks, over 50% came from just 2 guys, Lamar Jackson and Justin Fields. So you remove those 2 guys, and Cincinnati's not giving up much to quarterbacks. Stafford just has happened to scramble in each of the last 3 games, but he scrambled in under half of his games over the full season. So, I think this number is just way off just because of, what's been happening in the playoffs and some kind of variance. But there are outs to this number anyway. Stafford could scramble, for 4, 5, 6 yards, maybe even get another sneak for a yard. But as you mentioned, the Rams are the favorite. So the most likely outcome is Stafford's going to get a kneel down in there somewhere. Now, it doesn't guarantee it, but that's the thing about Stafford. He could clear this number without kneel downs. Like 5.5 is a high number for a quarterback that really doesn't run at all and hasn't been known to. So I think just like the Perine screen, you just take advantage of these, couple of Stafford runs over the last couple of games, and you hammer the under here at 5.5 again, which is 5 yards higher than his median over a 20-game sample, which is insane. I think the true odds, if you're going to post this at 5.5, the true odds should be about minus 185 to the under, but we're getting it evenly juiced on both sides. So love the Stafford under 5.5 rushing yards. And just, Cincinnati's like ace in the hole against the Chiefs was drop 8 in the coverage, which, that's you're just going to have to find somebody open. You're not really going to be able to run, as we saw Mahomes mostly ran backwards. So love Stafford under 5.5 rushing yards.
Yeah, I like this one too. I mean, I think that the number is more based on his, there's recency bias. And then if you look at some of his career numbers, I think if you go based off of his career numbers, he's like at 6 and change per game on average, but
but the median will still be lower. The median will still be lower.
Yeah. He's also 34 now, right? Like it's and he's on a different team in a different offense, right? With better receivers, like the Lions, it was a mess at times. So yeah, I completely agree here. If you look in the 17 regular season games, 43 rushing yards, 32 attempts, average of 2 carries per game for 2.5 yards. That's just the plain average. It's just way under, without even looking at the median. So yeah, I completely agree. He would have, even if you include the 3 postseason games where he went over, because he had 15 rushes for 36 yards, which makes it scarier, but I think that's where you're getting the value. He still would have went under 5.5 rushing yards in 65% of his games this year, including the postseason. So, and the Bengals opposing quarterbacks went over this number 11 of 20 times, including the postseason, but they faced Mahomes twice. They faced Lamar Jackson. They faced Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields. Like, these are quarterbacks that run as part of their repertoire, and that it only happened 11 out of 20 times. Now it only takes 2 scrambles, and then but you said there's outs too with the knees, so. I like this as well, and I played it, so I'm on board with you. I'm going to go to let's stay with the quarterback theme, and for my second pick and the 4th overall of the Super Bowl 56 Sunday six pack, I'm going to go with Joe Burrow over a half of an interception. This is one of my favorite props on the board, and let me just explain the case. Well, we'll take a look at the raw numbers for Burrow this year. He's thrown 16 interceptions in 19 games. He sat out the finale. So it's an average of about 0.84 per game. And he's been picked off at least once in 11 of those games, about 58%. So you'd say, that's juiced minus 130-ish at a half of an interception. It's not that egregious, but you got to dig a little deeper. And, even though he's averaging, 0.85 per game this year, you have to dig a little deeper for the prop, in my opinion. He's faced a really easy schedule of opposing pass defenses. For example, 8 of his 19 total games this year have came against the 7 teams in the NFL that recorded single-digit interceptions. So you got to face the Ravens twice. You got to face the Raiders twice, who have just had no interceptions. And if you just look across the board, if you look at the teams who, create a lot of turnovers, now there's some noise in it. But if you just look overall at the opposing pass defenses that he faced, really easy slate. Now he's going to have to face the Rams defense that finished tied for 3rd in the NFL with 19 interceptions. So they were averaging over 1 per game during the regular season. They also have 4 in 3 playoff games. And, during the regular season, they had at least 1 pick in 12 games. And if you include the postseason, that's 15 out of 20 games. They have at least 1 interception. They're going to play a lot of zone. I think they're going to play a lot more too high. You have a lot of playmakers that they're going to be able to get pressure. And there's just going to be a lot of opportunity for Burrow to make a mistake. And, that this is the profile of a defense that can give Burrow. If you look at where all of his picks came from, he had a couple against the Bears I think he threw 3 against the Bears, and the Bears were getting pressure. The Packers, getting pressure, playing zone on the back end. And Burrow likes to throw in the tight windows. He's not going to be able to, afraid to throw it at Ramsey. He's not going to be afraid to throw it into these tight zone windows. He was second in the NFL in throwing into tight windows, I should say, during the regular season. And yeah, he's played in a lot of big games. He's been amazing in big games. And if you include his time at LSU in win or else games, there's 9 of them in college and the NFL. He's 9-0 with 31 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. But this is the Super Bowl, and it's not like he was flawless last week in the AFC Championship game. He threw a late pick. He should have threw another one that was dropped. So this is a whole different stage. And look, Burrow's getting all the pub as he should, but it's not like he's been sparkling this postseason. If you look at his numbers, some of that he's being held back on his own. But this is no Joe Flacco run with 12 touchdowns and no interceptions to get to the Super Bowl. But I mainly think that this number is way too low. There's a lot of value on Burrow throwing at least 1 interception. I also think they're going to be playing from behind. He's going to be throwing a lot. I don't see really any game state where the Bengals blow out the Rams. It's possible, you fluke turnovers and but that would be the biggest disaster for this, because if he doesn't throw a pick early, then you're kind of just sitting on it. And but I think that there's a lot of factors here that point to Burrow throwing at least 1 interception. Wouldn't shock me if he threw 2. The matchup, the number, I think that this is a good bet to go over a half interception on Burrow.
Yeah, I'm looking at my projections. I have him for 0.86, and you said he was 0.84 for the season, right? That was about his. Yeah, so I have him just a little bit higher, and you're saying with that 0.84 came about a 58% chance. So 0.86, you're thinking around the same thing, maybe inching even towards 60%, 60% chance or higher of him throwing a pick. So yeah, I think that's the right play. I think the only thing you worry about is, most of his interceptions have come against man coverage, and the Rams, that's just not what they do. So we'll see what, how long if they stick with that coverage. But either way, most teams play a lot of zone, and it's still happened with Burrow more than almost 6% of the time. So
yeah, and I think that it's also the Super Bowl. It's so you're going down swinging, and you could get one at the end of the half, right, on a Hail Mary. You could get one. Yeah. You're going to be fighting till the very bitter end. But the pressure that the Rams can generate, forcing Burrow into mistakes, the pressure of the game, and I just think that this number is too low based on I think it's the hype of Burrow, and he hasn't thrown a lot of picks recently. But if you look at the past defenses he faced, and he was still at 0.84 this year. I think this is a good number. Where are you going next?
All right. So for my third pick and the fifth overall of the Super Bowl 56 Sunday six pack, I'm going with the first quarter under 9.5. And we've talked about this in the past, but Super Bowl first quarters tend to be lower scoring. Teams tend to come out a little bit tight. Offenses tend to come out a little conservative, feel each other out, don't do nothing too crazy to lose the game in the first quarter. And that's translated into these lower scoring first quarters. So if we go back to 1999, there's been 22 Super Bowls. Only 8 of those have hit double digits over that span. And these two teams kind of play right into that. You have this season, Cincinnati averaged 4.3 points in the first quarter, and the Rams averaged 4. So that's pretty middle of the pack for both teams. Obviously only adds up to 8.3. But you look at them, because that doesn't really tell us much if we don't know, relative to expectations. So look at the totals this year in the first quarter. Cincinnati is 13-6-1 to the under in the first quarter, and the Rams are 14-6 to the under in the first quarter. So combined, these two teams are 27-12-1 to the under in the first quarter, which is a 69% under hit rate. And I think you're just going to see more of the same. We've seen, even to a frustrating degree, when the Bengals get the ball early in games, they'll tend to come out passing on the first play. They've done that 16 of 20 times this year, and their early down pass rate has gone up. But we've seen in the postseason, to a frustrating degree, sometimes it seems, they'll hand off to Joe Mixon and just kind of keep things or try to keep things on schedule against this Rams pass rush. Against a guy like Ramsey's probably chomping at the bit to get a turnover. I think you're going to see more of the same. And then on the Rams side, we know what the Bengals MO is kind of let's be conservative. Let's make sure they don't kill us with big plays. We kind of saw that a lot in the second half. And I think we see an even more conservative defense early in the game now because of how they got down in that first half against Kansas City. I don't think they want a repeat of that in the Super Bowl. First Super Bowl for Stafford, first Super Bowl for Burrow, obviously. So I just think you have a lot of factors that play into a very similar first quarter to what we've been seeing in a lot of Super Bowls. Not to mention the Rams kind of have the perfect defense. If the Bengals get the ball early and have the ball for a good amount of the first quarter, the Rams have the perfect defense not to give up big plays. They'll play quarters a lot. You mentioned the split safeties. So I just think both of these teams are going to start out a little bit slow on offense, or, if they do have success, I think it'll be a very long drive. I think you still have a good chance of a long field goal drive or just, one of the teams making a long drive, scoring a touchdown, but taking enough of the first quarter that you don't get that second score. So love under 9.5. You could get a juiced up 10 some places. Obviously that's a key number, but again, we've seen 64% of Super Bowl first quarters over the last 2 decades plus go under 10.
Yeah, if you look since 1999, all NFL games, regular season, postseason, average close to 9 points. 8.9 in the first quarter. In the conference championships and Super Bowls, you're at about 6.5 or 2 points lower. Is that nerves? Is that a feeling out process? Over the last 5 Super Bowls, we haven't seen any team score in the first 6 minutes. And if you look at the other quarters, the second quarter, all games, 13.3. Conference championship Super Bowl, 13.5. It's more. All games, third quarter, 9.3. Conference champion Super Bowl, 10.9. Obviously you're going to have better teams too, but you have better defenses also. Fourth quarter, 12.4, 16.6 in the Super Bowl. That's why you've seen, I think 65% of Super Bowls have more points in the second half than the first half. So yeah, I agree with this one. I was actually looking, someone brought up a point. They were saying, why did the Rams can't score in the first quarter? What's going on? If you look at some of their first quarter points, so I went back and looked at their points per drive. I mapped out every single one of their drives for their full game and then looked at the first quarter. And then I realized that, if you look at the first quarter, drives that started in the first quarter, all their drives, they were right around 2.68 points per drive, which is their regular season average overall. What happened is I think they had 6 6 touchdown drives this year that started in the first quarter and then scored a touchdown in the second quarter. So I think there's a really good chance that happens too. So don't be surprised if you see that again. And that's skewing like their first quarter. You get all you got to do is who cares where they are? They could be at the 10, they could be at the 15. If for whatever reason the Rams and Stafford, and you could get nerves here too. Their turnovers have been in the first quarter early on. Remember like that the Titans game, the Packers game, the Ravens game. So maybe you see an early mistake that kind of kills a drive, and then you be pretty close to home free. So I like this as well.
Are we going with third?
For my third pick and the 6th overall of the Super Bowl 56 Sunday 6-pack, I'll go Cooper Kupp, longest reception over 28.5 yards. I full admit I stole this from our colleague and friend, Sean Kerner, when I was listening to you guys on the prop show, and then I dug into it, and then I really loved it. And I was just as shocked as him that there was value on a Cooper Kupp over.
Yeah.
I thought they were all just going to be way inflated. But Kupp, you can't be stopped. There's a reason he broke Michael Irvin's record this year for most games in a season with at least 100 receiving yards, including the postseason. And he still has one game to go. I just don't see much the Bengals can do to really slow him down, whether it's before or after the catch. And he would have cashed this prop in 15 of 20 games this year. 15 of 20. So you could get this on the deep ball, you could get this underneath and then going for 20 after the catch. And he's going to be facing a Bengals defense that ranked 25th in explosive pass percentage during the regular season, despite facing pretty easy schedule of opposing quarterbacks. They even got to face 5 backups for either all or part of 5 games of their 17 during the regular season. They faced Andy Dalton and Justin Fields. They faced Bridgewater and Locke. They faced Case Keenum, Josh Johnson, and Mike White. And they still ranked 25th in the NFL in explosive pass percentage. Kupp had 145 catches during the regular season, added 25 more so far in 3 postseason games. It's 170 total. Of those 170 catches, 21 went for at least 29 yards. He played 20 games. He had 21. So he's averaged slightly over 1 catch of more than 29 yards per game. And I think with this matchup, he's going to have a really good chance to do it again. So I think that this is too low of a number on Kupp. So I agree. I'm going to ride with Kerner, and your prop square is finishing things off with another over.
Yeah, no, I like this one. I've bet this as well. It's just too low based on the history. Like, regardless of what you think of the game, and maybe you think the Bengals can stop the Rams, but Kupp, that's the thing. He gets his win, lose, draw. Kupp is going to kind of get his, and that's the thing. After seeing that game against the Chiefs and going back and looking at what the Bengals did, which was a lot of dropping 8 in the coverage in the second half. You think about who's the guy you rely on in that situation. If they have to go to that, it's Cooper Kupp, and if they have to go to that, that probably means that the Rams had success early passing the ball anyway. So it's one of those situations where I think maybe it's not 75% like the past history, but 28.5 is essentially what the books are saying the median is. And I think that's way too low. All right. That is going to wrap it for our Super Bowl 56 Sunday 6-pack. To recap, Stuck is going with Joe Mixon over 25.5 receiving yards, Joe Burrow over 1/2 of an interception, and Cooper Kupp longest reception over 28.5 yards. I'm going Samaje Perine under 14.5 rushing plus receiving yards, Matt Stafford under 5.5 rushing yards, and the first quarter under 9.5 points.
Check out all of our Super Bowl content on the Action Network, and don't forget to watch Convince Me, 11 a.m. Eastern, Sunday, to see who we're thinking about as the game gets close.